market positioning. How can an entrepreneur evaluate the value of their offer?
After a company decided to enter to a specific market after segmentation activities, another important decision is the position that the enterprise wants to occupy in this market. Before speaking the definition, before explaining the definition of positioning, it's necessary to explain two different aspects. On the one side, we have to consider that an enterprise never acts alone in the market. There are also other enterprises that could offer products similar to the ones proposed by the enterprise. For this reason, the enterprise has competitors, and for this reason has the necessity to differentiate its proposal compared with the proposal of other enterprises. On the other side, we have to consider the situation of the consumer. Generally, the consumer today is overloaded with information. And so, if an enterprise has no specific characteristic to differentiate its product by other offer, for the consumer is indifferent to buy a product or not. There are no element that can distinguish the offer of the enterprise compared to the other enterprise. On the other hand, we have to think that a consumer has a lot of information to elaborate, and generally, to facilitate this process, use a representation. In other terms, use a position of a brand, of a product, or an enterprise. So, after this consideration, we can define what is the positioning. To define the position of an enterprise offering is to define the space that the enterprise offering occupies in the consumer minds compared to the offering of other enterprise, other competitors that are present in the market.
Is there a method for defining and representing the position of the enterprise in the market?
Yes. To develop a positioning strategy is necessary to develop a particular tool. This tool is called a positioning map, or as it's based on the perception of the consumer, it's possible also to define this map as a perceptual map. Now, to construct this perceptual map, we have to follow three different stages. Well, the first is to select the main attributes of the products. In other words, it's necessary to identify and to define what are the characteristics of the product that lead the consumer to buy the product. Relating to this aspect, we have to say that not all characteristics are good for this operation. It's necessary to consider in general technical characteristics. It's very difficult, for example, to classify the products on the basis of generic quality or on the basis of prices. For example, considering these two last aspects, generally price and quality are correlated. And so, if we construct the positioning map on the basis of these two characteristics, the map has no meaning. So, if we consider technical characteristics, for example, if we consider the buying of a camera, we can use the weight, the size, the memory, the zoom, and so all technical aspects which lead the consumer to buy these products. The second, we can choose the most important two attributes as the main characteristics that we can consider for the construction of the map, or, in other words, the value of the axis of the two-dimensional map, because the representation generally is made by a bidimensional map. If we consider so the two main characteristics, we have the two dimensions, the x and the y. The second step is to list the competitors of an enterprise. Generally, we consider about 10 competitors, and the role in this case is to position the brand of these competitors into the map. In other terms, it's necessary to plot onto the map each brand. The third and the last activities that we have to carry on is to quote or to create scores for each offering of several enterprise or several brands we have considered. We generally attribute a score, and through this operation we are able to define the coordinates of each brand and to have a full representation of all brands which are present in the market. In this way, we have not only a tool, but we have also a result. In this case, we have not only a representation of the position of all brands present in the segment of market, but we can also consider, for example, the position of the enterprise offering compared to, as said before, the offering of competitors. In this case, the behavior of an enterprise can be different. For example, an enterprise can decide to fill a gap which emerges from the map, or in the other case can decide, for example, to stay near its competitors, because in this last case can think, for example, that make the same thing but make them better.